at the end of the day, we only get one life, and when we come into this world on our own and we leave on our own, and it's our duty, I believe, if we want to live a truly fulfilled life, to be responsible. And I just think that that starts with what you do physically.
Zane Truscott, thanks for coming on the podcast, mate.
Great to be with you, Alex. Been really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's been a little while coming, but we're here at last. So I like to start off with a bit of a fun one just to get us rolling, get us in the zone. What's the sweatiest you've ever been?
Well, I've got to say, in one of your eye health saunas, we had one installed. It must have been about 6 months ago now, and it's become quite a religion around the home. We, I'm 48 now, and Inga's around the same age, and our kids, up in their 20s now, at least two of them anyway, and we've always been exploring and looking for ways to support our health and vitality in a holistic way. And we kind of stumbled across infrared saunas about 5 years ago, and we're using them sort of sporadically. But once we got wind of the fact that we could have one in our garage, we took the plunge. So. Just an awesome addition to what we do from a holistic and wellness point of view. But I'd have to say, mate, 10 minutes in that thing, and she's a sweat pit for sure. What's
your general temperature and time that you go for, Zane?
Yeah, look, I'm usually in there for at least 3/4 of an hour. I usually set the timer at 60 minutes by the time it heats up, and I get in there and muck around just to get settled. Yeah, so usually 45 minutes, around sort of 50 to 55 degrees. And, as you well know, with infrared, it's a kind of very gradual heat that sort of works from the inside out. So it doesn't hit you like a ton of bricks, so you kind of feel it, I guess, 10, 15 minutes in, you really start to see those toxins, fire out and like an avalanche.
Yeah, it kind of sneaks up on you. You hop in and you're like, oh, it's not that bad. Yeah, this is okay. And then 15, 20 minutes later, you're like, oh my God, it's really hot in here.
Yeah, for sure. But, you do it knowing, we all know that, the skin is one of the largest organs of detoxification, if not the largest organ that we have. So, you just know you're doing yourself good to get in there for that amount of time and to just release, really sweat it out, release whatever toxins are in your body, and reduce the inflammation and, all of that. So, really, really good. That's definitely the sweatiest I've been, for sure.
You're pretty active, I know, and so have you found since using the sauna? This isn't a sauna ad, by the way, everyone. But I'm just curious, have you found? I know you do a lot of mountain biking and surfing. Have you found that you're kind of more limber between those sort of workouts since using the sauna?
Yeah, you probably wouldn't realise this yet, mate, but definitely as you get older, you do find that there's a lot more niggles. There's if you have a pretty hefty workout, you tend to take a little longer to recover. So I've just found that having access to that, and I'm not in there every day by any stretch. I'll probably use it 2-3 times a week, but I just find that it goes a long way to just helping you recover faster. It helps you reduce just that inflammatory response that you typically get when you've had a long ride, or a lot of the training I do is very functional. I I do F45 four or five times a week. So for those of you who are familiar with F45, it's pretty much 45 minutes of high intensity interval training, where there's a lot of cardio, you really get your heart rate up, but at the same time, you're also on a number of the stations placing quite a bit of resistance. Often it's just body weight, pull-ups, push-ups, box jumps, bear crawls, things like that, battle ropes. But then there are times you're also lifting weights as well. So I just find, depending on the session, sometimes I pull up, a little bit more tender than others, and definitely on those usually the next day I feel it, and they're the times where I'll jump into the sauna for, half hour to an hour and sweat it out, as they say, Alex.
That's it. Yeah, that's it, man. And it just kind of like gets you going again, I find. I'm not, I haven't got as many years of wisdom as you do, but even still, I still notice it. If I go a period of a week or two, maybe I'm traveling around, I'm not using sauna, but I'm still working out, still moving. It's like, I'm a bit kind of stiffer than usual. So yeah, it's a good thing. So you touched on before that you and your family live very holistically. And I have a feeling a lot of listeners are actually going to know exactly who you are. And, a lot of our listeners are in the Tolman tribe, I guess, both Don and Tyler. What sort of an influence did working with Don and Tyler, I guess, a little bit all those years have on you guys, and how are you guys kind of living your life now because of that? Yeah,
it's, massive. It's been huge. I got to meet Don in the mid-90s, and, his wisdom, I guess, is any time I think about Don, it's not so much, the little bits of information that he shares that are really so simple. It's more to do with just his depth of wisdom around longevity and fasting and healing ourselves and taking, responsibility for our own health and wellness, and, a lot of the ancient wisdom that goes back thousands of years as to, how cultures did that without intervention, and so, I grew up in a fairly healthy environment. My mum and dad split when I was 8 years old, and I was kind of half with my dad, half with my mum. And, I wouldn't say that we were a health conscious, super health conscious family, but certainly, we didn't eat takeaway every night and sit in front of the telly. We were active, we're kind of active family. My mum and dad were both in their own sort of businesses. They're always striving to achieve good things. And when you're in that environment, it kind of rubs off on you. And so, when I came across Don, his message had a big impact. I went to a launch of a big company that he was the front man for, coming out of America, called the Brain Garden in the mid-90s. And, that particular night, Don did a presentation centered around this whole concept called the children of the lie. And it was essentially, unpacking the lies that the establishment has sort of been broadcasting in terms of, the health industry and healthcare and how it's really sick care and all of that. And anyway, I bought his set of tapes, and I used to drive around in my Nissan Pulsar and listen to him day after day. So, before I even got to work with Don, his message just had such a massive impact on me. And, by that stage, I'd already been through my own health and wellness journey, and I'd overcome some physical and emotional challenges I had as a teenager. So by the time I got to Don, I was already very much very conscious around health and wellness and living foods, and I'd been exposed to fasting in small amounts. And so, but he just really, hit it for a home run. And, it wasn't until 10, 12 years later that Inga and I actually had a kind of a crossroads moment in our career, and we had the opportunity to work with Don, and the rest is kind of history. So yeah, we spent pretty much 14 years of our professional life, doing very little else other than just helping Don to broadcast his message of self care, whole food wisdom out to the Australian community. And I think I worked out the other day that I've been in a seminar room with Don for in excess of 3,000 hours.
Wow.
So there's probably not even his son, Tyler, would have had that amount of exposure to Don's wisdom, purely because of, my role in all of it, which was basically marketing Don, promoting Don, facilitating the message, introducing the message, coordinating the schedule, refining the program to make the outcomes better for the audience. So yeah, I was very much immersed in it. It wasn't kind of like, here, Don, here's your audience. I'm going to go and, do what I've got to do. I was always very much at the coalface and in the thick of it from day one. And so yeah, the short answer is he's had a massive impact on the way we view health and what we understand about health and wellness. And we've applied that for a lot of years to our life.
Mm. Yeah, beautiful. His information is crazy. And I was always I really got influenced by Tyler a lot when I was kind of younger, and I was like, what? Like, you can not eat anything and like heal the body? What do you mean? It's just like, since then I've done a lot of fasting and completely changed my life, really. And so I guess through that it seems like that's kind of helped you develop your own, sort of stages or steps to health, things that you focus on and that you're an advocate for. Tell me a little bit more about what those steps are.
Yeah, so I had a bit of a light in the sand moment, I guess, when I was 16 years old. I had a really shocking bout of chronic fatigue. I was involved in a lot of different things. I was involved in music. I was involved in sport. My dad had us into go-kart racing. I was all over the place. I just, I was just trying to kind of find what it was that I was, was passionate about, and that I really wanted to make part of my life as a young kid. And but I had some health challenges. I was never quite good enough physically or talent-wise to make, the top grade in rugby or, in soccer or any of the sports that I was playing as a kid. I had these challenges with my health that sort of came about when I was around 16, in particular chronic fatigue, but also I had really bad skin issues. I was on a drug called Roaccutane, which, is not a good drug. But at the time, I mean, God bless my mum, but that's the only way she knew how to help me. And so that combined with the chronic fatigue, combined with the fact that, I just didn't feel emotionally like I was centered as a kid. I didn't feel like I was, I'd found my thing. I hadn't found my calling as a kid. Didn't really know where I belonged, and maybe some of that went back to, what happened with my mum and dad when I was 8 years old. But none of it's out of the box stuff. I mean, a lot of young people go through it. I mean, I've seen it with my own kids to a point. But in terms of that crossroads or line in the sand moment, I kind of got to a point where I was fed up in being out of control. Like, I didn't really know why this was happening to me. I was doing my best in sport. I wasn't quite getting there. I felt like I was, doing all the right things certainly from a diet perspective, and my health sucked. I was not strong. I was not athletic, and so I kind of thought, you know what, if it's going to be, it's up to me. And I just decided that I'd start learning about health, and I came across a book called Fit for Life by Harvey and Marilyn Diamond. And, it was multiple New York Times bestseller. I mean, it was, a lot of people referred to it as a fad diet, a Fit for Life diet. But actually the principles of the Fit for Life diet, are probably 80%, I would say 80% in line with what it is that Don's taught over the years. I say 80% because, there's still, to a point, there's still animal products, although they're pretty much dead against dairy in the philosophy. But I really took on, the core principle that I took on that helped me the most was not eating any solid food until midday. And essentially their whole philosophy was built around the principle of orthopathy, which was an ancient Greek hygienic natural eating movement, whereby we would respect and honour the body's 3 natural cycles. And the cycle in the morning, which most people don't realise, is the 8-hour period, on the back end of the 8-hour period, called the digestive cycle, or the elimination cycle. So, when we disrupt that cycle by eating solid food, we actually cause chaos in the body. And I was actually raised to believe that breakfast was the most important meal of the day, right? And of course, when we're young and we're active and we're doing 1,000 different things and all of that, sure, it's fine. You get away with it. But when it comes to alleviating chaos in the body, there comes a time where you've got to honour those principles. And so I was in a state of chaos, and it could have been hormonal stuff. It could have been the fact that I was just, 16, I was just a kid, I was just growing up. I had a bit of emotional trauma going on with, being sort of moving between my mum and my dad. Didn't quite feel like I belonged. Stuff going on at school, all the stuff around, not feeling like I was up to it with the sports. So there was all this stuff going on for me, which certainly didn't help, I'm sure, from a physical point of view, and was manifesting itself in a certain way. But that principle really hit home with me, and that was the start of it. And then beyond that, it was, not only really realizing that there was a principle of diet that was called, clean eating that would have a big impact on me, but also the fact that I needed to actually really up the ante when it came to, health and fitness. And, I was getting into the ocean. I was running a lot. I started lifting weights. So that was really the time. And then then I got into martial arts when I was 19 years old. I had another crossroads moment where I was king hit at a party when I was 18, and was just oblivious to the threat that was there that night. And I just, all through my life, any time that something's happened that I didn't like, or that I felt like I could overturn or I could prevent from happening again, I've always taken personal responsibility and decided that, I'm going to fix that problem. And if I trace back through my journey, that's the way I've always done things. And so it started with my health, then it was the thing with martial arts, and then, it was my first business venture went bad, so I went on a certain journey to ensure that I was responsible for that, and that wouldn't happen again. And it's just been one thing after the other, Alex. But to this day, so here I am, 30 years on, and the principles that I learned from Fit for Life, reinforced by Don, are pretty much the principles that I live by. And I'm not perfect by any stretch. I let my guard down. No one enjoys food more than me, and a good meal out and a beer and letting my hair down from time to time. But I'm a big believer in the fact that so many people get off track with their health because they don't really subscribe to this philosophy of 80-20. And there's so much wisdom in just that simple principle. It's what you do 80% of the time in your life that really shows up. And it breeds consistency. and that's probably my greatest strength is that ability to just be resolute with my daily habits that I know foundationally, particularly first thing in the morning, really set the scene and set the tone for everything else. And I've just written an ebook called Winning Morning Routine, and I basically, it's 8 morning habits to help you thrive. And
come on, let's get those. I want to hear those right now.
Yeah. So the ebook's coming out this week, but mate, that's what I do. I mean, that's my thing. I'm so robust on the morning thing, and then away we go from there.
Yeah, I think I feel like I talk about morning routines on every single podcast that I do, but that's because people who are focused on their health, like the morning is where it begins. I want to just touch on something I think really powerful back there, and I do want to talk about the mind and eating well and moving well. But you talked about taking responsibility for when things went wrong in your life, and I think there's so much power in that just alone, because so often, depending on your programming, I guess, that you get from your parents, but it's so easy to be a victim. And woe is me, or that thing happened to me. But it's when we actually take those things on, take responsibility and do something about it, that's when we grow. And it might be really hard, but that's where you make the progress, And I think you can really drill that down into any area of your life, because everything's happening to you. Whatever's going on in here, is reflected on what's going on out there. And maybe it's getting king hit at a party, or maybe it's just, some sort of relationship issue that's coming up for you. Like, when we take responsibility for those things, we learn and we grow and we become better people for that. And it sounds like that is kind of a bit of a mantra or something that's been going on in your mind since the early days, right?
Yeah, it has, mate. But, I think it's not society's fault that we struggle to look within. I think it takes a lot of consciousness to do that, because everything's stacked against us. Everything that we're exposed to, all the outside forces, the quick fix world that we live in, the messages that get sort of jammed down our throat from such, our formative years, all of those things condition us to not take responsibility, to always feel like, anything that happens to us is not our fault. And in part it's not, because the system doesn't serve us well, and so I just think that, 100%, it's, whether it's, financial freedom or, having overcoming disease or avoiding disease, being able to be physically active and feeling really good within yourself emotionally, when you get to the later stages in life, because you've done all the right things, whatever it might be, the reality is that at the end of the day, we only get one life, and when we come into this world on our own and we leave on our own, and it's our duty, I believe, if we want to live a truly fulfilled life, to be responsible. And I just think that that starts with what you do physically, which has a big impact on how you feel emotionally, which has a big impact on, how you cultivate purpose in your life. And so, you can't just isolate one piece. For me, it's wellness, health, vitality, energy, avoiding disease. All of those things are about a holistic picture. You can't isolate one component and say, well, I'm just going to do that well, and then everything will be fine, because inevitably what we see from people, and you only need to think about people who might be just killing it in one area. But, when you actually get to know them and you find out, you always find that there are parts that are really breaking down that can undo a lot of the good stuff going on in their life. So for me, it's just an ongoing, never-ending quest to improve yourself in all aspects.
What would you say are those main components if someone was kind of unpacking their life a little bit and thought that, you know, sometimes you just feel there's something going on here, but what are those main components?
Well, I'm sort of putting together a body of work right now. It's under a brand called Wake Up Wellness, and inside that is basically four key areas that I think fundamentally make up how we feel and how we, you know, the outcomes we get from life. And first one is obviously to think well, so it's all about our mindset. Stage number 2 is to ensure that we eat well, so it's all about, you know, obviously nutrition, getting that from the right sources, hydration as well, how we approach nutrition. So, you know, it can involve aspects of fasting. So it's not just about the food we eat, it's when we eat, how we eat, and how we encompass all that into our lifestyle. And then we talk about movement, and you've got obviously base level exercises that as human beings, no matter our age, no matter our level of fitness, we should all do. For example, walking at least, you know, 30, 45 minutes a day in the morning if you can. And really, there's no excuse for anybody not to do that unless obviously you're physically incapacitated from doing so. So walking, but for me, even more importantly, it's about functional movement. It's about, if you really want to get into the later stages of your life and be agile, be nimble, be pain-free, be strong, be able to keep up with your grandkids, you know, to be able to play cricket in the backyard with, you know, people that are 20, 30 years younger than you. For me, functional movement is where it's at. You know, obviously walking's a constitution. There are so many basic foundational health benefits that come with walking. And as I say, we all should do that. But I just think there's another level we all need to go to, which doesn't mean we need to run a marathon. It doesn't mean we need to kill ourselves in the gym or do high intensity training. It just means that we should all be aspiring to just tweak the dial a little bit, you know, when it comes to our movement, and to do it in a way that's functional. You know, I mean, how many times, you know, as particularly as you get older and you've got more free time, you see people in the yard and they're gardening and they're lifting pots and just simple, basic, foundational things like that. And if you don't have just some basic, you know, agility and strength and physicality, even those kinds of things when you get into your 50s can be tough. So for me, the game is all about, every time I think, oh, gee, I don't feel like working out today or something like that, I just think about my grandkids. They're not here yet, but, you know, they're, you know, probably not too far away. But I just think, you know, how long will I be able to knock around with these little buggers for, you know? And for me, that's the incentive. That's kind of like the carrot, if you like, to just keep going. Yeah, so it's really those four things, Alex. It's think well, eat well, move well, and then the final one is live well. And live well really comes down to the intangible forces in our life, and that's having a sense of purpose. And the word purpose is actually a compound word meaning pure position. So it's living in a sense of you know, purity with who it is that you really are in your heart. It's having a passion and spending, you know, some designated amount of time on that every single week. Again, you don't have to go crazy, but there's so much that happens to us emotionally when we lean into, you know, a hobby or something that really lights us up electrically. And too many people lose their passion as they get older and they feel like, you know, they're past it now, or that was just when I was a kid. Or, I mean, one of the greatest things I really enjoyed when I was a kid was my BMX racing and my BMX bike. And just because I'm 48 years old doesn't mean I'm not going to ride anymore. And that's why in the last 10, 15 years, I started the mountain bike, because it's something I love. It's still a part of me. It's just that I've transposed that passion to how it is that I can do it later in life. And then the other thing, of course, is relationships, which is a big one. And I've had the honour of being married to a wonderful woman. We've just had our 21st wedding anniversary. And so, not easy though. Not easy. There's a lot of ups and downs and challenges and things that come up throughout a journey with somebody for that long, and that's a whole separate probably 10 podcasts that we could go through. But
let's put them in, mate.
but yeah, it's such an important part, and I think even Tony Robbins says this a lot, and it's such a true statement, and that is that if you're not happy in your intimate relationship, the chances are that you're not happy in your life. The most source of pleasure and pain that we'll get as human beings throughout our lifetime is our intimate relationships, or lack thereof. And I think if we're being absolutely true to ourselves, we'll all realise that that's absolutely the case if we're really thinking about our life and our journey. And it's the people that are closest to you that they're the ones that really add value and joy to your life. Or sometimes those relationships can grow apart. Sometimes they can become toxic. Sometimes they require some healing. Sometimes they require some forgiveness. There's a lot to that, but relationships is definitely one of the most important aspects. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think an intimate partner, I've been lucky. My partner and I aren't married yet, but we've been together almost 8 years now, 7.5 years actually. And, I also remember Tony Robbins, he was talking about relationships and just life in general, and that idea of like, do you want your life to be like just kind of, you're not really maybe being honest with everyone, maybe you're not going through the healing and you're just kind of like flatlining through life, or do you want to go through the ups and the downs, And I always think about that with relationships, because sometimes they can be really, really challenging, but then other times you're at the top of the world and it's the most beautiful thing. And they're a reflection of yourself. I think of my intimate relationship with Kristen, and it's like, that's just an expression of how you see yourself, in that person. And fostering self-love really helps with that. And like you said, forgiveness and those sort of things, really, really obviously critical. With those 4 things, think well, eat well, move well, and live well. How important is it to actually, once you learn these sort of new ideas or concepts or things that we can be doing, how important is it to practice those on a daily basis?
Look, I think there's time for a little bit of all of it every single day. And, when we're looking at trying to improve ourselves in a holistic way, it's interesting how a lot of them actually cross over and sort of tap into, so your physical health has a big impact on your mental health and your emotional health. So it's not like we need to say, oh, gee, today I just need to focus on my physical, or today I just need to work on my relationship. It's quite amazing how they're all intertwined, and there's a lot of synergy. I do believe that if there was one thing that I believe is the source of or the biggest thing we should all work on, it would be our physical health. And more so than diet, even though diet's important, it would be just getting your ass up and just moving, because there is so much that you discover about yourself when you move your body physically, and particularly when you push it to the line. Now, and I don't mean doing a Hawaiian Ironman. I'm just saying there's a place you can take yourself, let's call it 3-4 times a week. It doesn't necessarily even have to be every day. But I'm just saying there's a place you can take yourself that is, it's just that place of self-discovery or reinforcement about how great you really are and what you're really capable of. And the ripple effect of taking yourself to that place on your, not only your physical health, but your emotional health, your self-belief, your productivity, your sense of purpose, your connection with others around you, your connection with the earth. It just can't be understated, Alex. I mean, it's for me, it's the number one thing. And if people would do that and just focus on that to begin with, switching your diet up, or, you know, bringing in cycled fasting, intermittent fasting, getting into an eye health infrared sauna, working on your relationship, starting your own business, you know, finding a passion, something that you've been shelving for way too long, to actually start spending some time on and just going on a bit of a journey of discovery around what really lights you up. All of those things start to come when you take yourself to that place that I'm talking about. And so, yeah, it's difficult to answer that in terms of, you know, how you do it all on a daily basis, because I just think that so much of it's intertwined. And I just think if we're living from a place of high vibration, which starts with your physicality, I just think a lot of those pieces just, they just come into play. Yeah, what do you think about all that?
Yeah, no, I think it's a bit of a, I think it's like you said, that they all kind of flow into each other. Mark Manson, in his book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, he says, he talks about motivation, and he says, like, you've got motivation here, and then you've got actions, and then you've got results. And, you know, they all kind of feed into one another. But the thing I really liked about that is he said, because they all feed into one another, you don't have to start with motivation. You know, you can actually start with action, right? And, you know, I just posted on my story a couple of days ago, like, I woke up in the morning and I don't know, I just didn't want to go for a run. I just didn't want to do anything. And I never want to do nothing in the morning. Like, even Kristen was like, are you okay? Like, you know, I was just lying in bed for longer than normal. And I just thought of that, and I just thought, Alex, just get up and move your ass, man. And so by taking action, you know, I just went for a run. I just made it happen. By taking action, then I got back and I had that kind of good feeling, you know, like, fuck yes, like I've just done that. You know, I had a good sweat happening and the endorphins were flowing. So I got the result, right? And then from that, the motivation came. And all of a sudden it was a Sunday and I was in the office and I was like doing all this planning and like these ideas were flowing and it was happening, you know? And I think it's because, yeah, they all kind of flow into one another. And certainly I think movement's a really powerful way to start, which is why I'd like to start my day with movement, whether it's a surf or a run or a mountain bike ride or even just a light walk if I'm not going too crazy, you know. And get that happening. But I do think it all kind of, like you said, does all connect. And I think, maybe we start to improve our diet a little bit, start to feel a little bit lighter. Maybe then we start to move a little bit more, you know, or start to hydrate better. And these things also have flow-on effects, just as much as, you know, doing some work with the mind, you know, like you're not going to think your way to being a millionaire, but being in a good state of mind will certainly help you take the action to do that. You know, I think they all do kind of flow into each other. Yeah.
And I think our environment, and the atmosphere we create around our mind is just critical because, if we're feeling uninspired constantly because we're in a shitty environment or we're always listening to the news and it's just heavy, you know, it's just heavy. It's tough to get inspired. And that's why we've got to be so conscious about where we place our mental environment. We may not be able to change the physical surroundings that we're in easily. But, we certainly can all have a big say in what it is that we're allowing to infiltrate our mind and the frequency that we're tuning into on a daily basis. And I think the more proactive we are in that field of taking ownership for our mindset and taking a stand for ourselves, that we're going to feed our mind positive, energetic, progressive material, the better off we're going to be. And there's really no excuse these days for us not to do that. I mean, we've got so much at our fingertips now on these little iPhones that we can tap into if we want to do it, if we want to go on a journey of self-improvement. There's no excuse not to do it. And the only reason not to do it is if we don't have a big enough why, is if we get stuck, we're addicted to comfort,
The monkey brain does its thing,
I tell you what, mate, you only need to go and watch one of David Goggins' clips or something like that and you'll get your ass up, right?
100%. Or you'll get scared.
Or you get scared, you go, oh, shit, too hard. But it's true. If you listen to, whether it's Joe Rogan and just get him going on an inspiring rant, or it's, David Goggins, or it's listening to a motivational clip from someone like Tony Robbins, or, there's so many, or Mel Robbins, she talks about the 5-second rule. It's just, there's so many tools we've got access to that just help us to just go, wow, that's an insight that I needed today, and that's all the shift that we need sometimes, just to actually, do what we know we should be doing. Because procrastination is the killer for us all. it's, we all know that we're never going to want to do it. The mind's always going to try and keep us safe. It's built, it's a 2 million year old piece of software that sort of, was built on fight or flight and, out in the wild and trying to take on saber-toothed tigers and go and find food and just, and we've transposed that same software into today's world. And so, our mind is always on the hunt for safety. And the trouble is that it's trying to stop us from doing things that we know we need to do. And so it's a battle. We're always in a battle to take ownership of our thoughts and to not let our mind become passive, because the minute it becomes passive, that's when we fall in a heap, because the establishment wants a passive population, because a population that's passive is one they can mold into whatever they want them to mold into. And, again, a whole other topic rabbit hole we can go down, but I just think that we're at a critical time in history right now where it is about control. I think that the extent to which the masses start to work on themselves, work on their minds, work on their physicality, work on their consciousness and their awareness about what's really going on, and not just sort of passively sit and just say, oh, look, it's out of my control, so, we'll just get on with it. I don't think it's the time for that. I think it's the time for us to be very, very aware of what's happening in the world and the impact that potentially that could have if the people don't bind together. And we're in really interesting times, Alex, really interesting times.
I think so. Absolutely. And I think on a small level, but also at a large level, like everything's a choice, right? It's a choice if we choose to do, that hard thing, or if we choose to not want to expand our consciousness and our being. It's always a choice, and I like what you're saying about the environment and may not be able to change our physical environment very easily, but we can change our mental environment and we can do some work in there. And when we do the work in here, you know, our external environment changes, you know, certain people come in or out of our lives and other things may change. You may end up living in another area or in a different place with different people. And when you choose to do that work, you know, life starts to open up, you know, and different things become available to you. And it can really kind of start from there, you know. I mean, if you're in a slump and things aren't going your way, you know, do some challenging work, go inwards, see what's in there. And
let's face it, life's not easy, and we're always going to be faced with challenges. And I mean, I could talk for hours about all the ones I've been through, you know, in business and in life, and so much of it and the way we deal with it is what matters most. You know, it's like, you know, I don't believe that failure is ever fatal unless we allow it to be. And too many people stop themselves from making any kind of progress or meaningful progress because they've had a bad experience in the past, you know. And so, yeah, we just got to be really careful about, you know, that we don't become passive, that we don't allow our comfortable, secure mind to dictate where we're going, and that we look for the inner power that we've got within us to really lean in when things get tough, and not even necessarily need to climb the mountain in a day. You know, it's like just put one foot in front of the other and just be content with the fact that you're moving in the right direction. And that's been something I've had to remind myself of a lot, particularly in the last couple of years. You know, we've been through a lot of transition in the work that we're doing, and you know, when you have a new vision for where you want to go, sometimes that vision can seem like so far away, and you can get stuck because it takes energy and it takes momentum to achieve good things and new things. And so I'm the same as everyone else. You know, I know how tough that is, but if you can just break it down into bite-sized pieces and just realise, you know, today I'm just going to do X, and just focus on that particular thing, minimise distractions in your life, turn your notifications off when you're working on a project, things like that. I just think are so important, because with progress, there's a sense of fulfillment that we feel. And, you know, we may not have achieved the thing in a day or a week or a month or even a year, but at least if we've got a sense of progression, if we feel like we're actually heading in the right direction, you know, sometimes that's enough. You know, that you've just got to feel content with that, and just know that there's an intangible force called grace. And whether you believe in higher powers or God or whatever it might be, I truly believe that there's an intangible force that will follow you when you start following your heart and you start moving in a direction that you feel. And it's just amazing when you trace back through your life, when you've had those tough moments, when you start to dust yourself off and move in a certain direction. It's amazing how things just start to open up.
The universe always supports you, right? I always felt that with when I started to prioritize my health. It was as if each time I did a juice fast, like, things would just kind of happen a little bit easier. You know, it was like the universe saying, you're looking after your body. Here you go. You know, and maybe it sounds a bit funny, but that's certainly how it felt. And, you know, right up to last year, I did a really long fast, you know, and healed my gastrointestinal issues I had going on. And, you know, my partner healed all of her cystic acne on her back. And afterwards, it was just like life was just at like warp speed. You know, we came out of that, we're eating raw fruits most of the time. Well, we're eating raw the whole time, mainly fruits, and we still eat like that. And it's just, it was just like life was just going at this amazing speed. It was rich, you know, and it was just like the universe saying, here you go, man. Like you did the work. You know, and yeah, it just seemed like life was, different in a good way after that, you know.
Intention is such a powerful force, you know. It's just so powerful, and we underestimate that, I think, just how powerful it is. But, you know, if you can move forward with intention because you've got clarity on something that you need or something that's important, and you just can break that thing down into meaningful bite-sized pieces. There's no doubt there's a force out there that sort of opens up for us that helps us to get there faster than we can imagine.
Yeah, and if the intention's there, you know, I really see it as like you either I'm doing this thing at the moment where before I go to sleep, I listen to some theta binaural beats, and then I have some statements that I've recorded myself saying that I listen to whilst listening to the theta binaural beats. And one of them is I either win or I learn, right? And I find that when you have that intention or that purpose, like you said, that you really start to see the world like that. And I actually think the world's always like that, right? Everything is happening for you for a reason, so you can grow, so you can evolve. And it's really like that. Like you either succeed or you're just learning something that you needed to know to be able to get closer to succeeding, you know? And it's so true. Like, especially when you have that intention, that purpose, because then it's just like, I don't care what happens. Like, you know, I think about it like when you're a kid and you're learning to skate or do something that uses kind of complex motor skills, like, or ride a bike, for example, you know, maybe go over some jumps or something, and you stack it and like you immediately just go again. Partly because as a kid, you just have that vitality, right? Like you can just keep going, which gets a little bit harder as we get older. But we also, the older we get, the more programmed we get for fear, right? And, you know, we start thinking, oh, but if I stack it on the snowboard, I might, you know, break my knee, and then I'm like in Japan, and then I got to do it. If you're a kid, you're not thinking about that stuff. Like you're just doing it, you know, and there's that drive there. And then through that repetition and through learning, you know, you pick things up quickly. And in life, we just kind of get in our own way in the end, and it doesn't happen as quickly. And
it's because of our experience. You know, like a lot of people don't realize that the more experienced you are at something, it's actually a disadvantage. And that analogy just there, Alex, is actually just the exact, that's the truth. You know, it's like when we're a kid, we're not experienced, we're just experimenting. You know, we're not thinking too much about the result. We're just going, oh shit, you know. I mean, if you're a toddler, if you're crawling and you try to walk and you realize how long it's going to take you to walk, you'd give up. Right. But, you know, when it's the first 3 or 4 times that you fell down on your ass, you'd go, well, shit, you know, look, this is too hard, I'm going to give up. But, you know, that there just really symbolises what we're all made of, the fact that, you know, as human beings, we just have this innate intelligence inside of us to be able to get things done and to put one foot in front of the other and to actually achieve what it is that's important to us. You know, and we just forget about that innate intelligence because we're exposed to so much stuff that is designed to pull that away from us, you know, and, you know, things drop into my head, but I don't want to go down there. But it's just, it's so important that we realise that you don't need to be experienced. You don't already need to be in great shape. You know, you don't already need to be 100% feeling your best in terms of your physical health. You know, maybe you've got some health issues, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know, your journey is your journey, and it doesn't matter what the person next to you is doing. That's their journey. And for every positive thing they've got going on in your life, right, there's going to be equally something that is not up to scratch for them. And so you just got to realise that comparison's the thief of joy. If we've got stuff going on, the name of the game is just to set an intention, get clear on what it is that we really want. And if it's to get off medication or it's to lose weight, or it's to get in shape, or it's to improve our relationship, or it's to find our passion, or it's to start a business. I mean, there's all of these things right now are so topical for people because we're all of a sudden, the world's slowed down. So we're starting to actually come back to our center and say, well, before I didn't have time. I was run off my feet. I was too busy just getting things done, just getting through the day. The universe has now conspired to make us all stop. And so now is the time more than ever for us to just center ourselves, look inside ourselves, to work on ourselves, work on our physical, mental and emotional wellness, and just to realize that we are the masters of our own destiny in all of this. And it's the more experienced we are at having success, the more prone we are to failure, I think, because we have so many preconceived ideas about what might happen. And I love it when people they get to those moments like I had when I was 16, where you just say, you know what, it's my way or the highway. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take ownership for it. I'm going to step into it. And I don't really care what the outcome looks like. I know what it needs to be, and I'm just going to head in that direction. And I'll figure it out.
Yeah, the analogy I like is, your destination is, Sydney. So I'm driving to Sydney, but you can't see the whole road there, right? You can just see kind of what's in front of you, and the road might do, this or this or this or up or down, but you know where the destination is, and then enjoy the bloody ride on the way.
Yeah, for sure.
I like that. And one thing I wanted to add to that too, like you kind of touched on the world slowing down a little bit. And I think so many people, even me too, last year it was like, wow, you just kind of think a little bit differently. And I heard a lot of people saying, I realize I don't want to work as much, or I realize I want to follow this passion a little bit more, and if like a message to anyone who is doing that, like continue to follow that, because as human beings, we'll start getting busy again. We go out of lockdown and within 2 weeks, we forgot that we just did 7 months of lockdown in Melbourne, and we just very quickly fall back in our old routines. If you felt like you were going to do something or start a business or, start a tribe, like do it, just do it, because otherwise we can get swept away again. And all of a sudden it'll be 2024 and we'll be in, COVID 56 and, it'll just be like more time will have passed, and life's too short for that stuff, man. Like,
true. And it doesn't need to be perfect either. Whatever it is you want to do, just start ugly. If you want to lose 10 kilos, start ugly, right? You don't need the right shoes. You don't need a gym membership. Just get up off your ass, get out there and just move, work up a sweat, you can do it. You can do it, and it's just, it all starts within. The rest of the journey will take care of itself the minute you just start ugly and take action. And it's a big insight I've had recently, because I've always been somebody, and I think a lot of it's got to do with the work that I've done for so long. You've got to be so organised all the time, and in that space when you're running events and seminars and everything needs to go like clockwork. And so for me, I'm now on a journey where I'm realising, starting new projects, just get the bloody flip chart out, just get everything out of your head into a, and that's just an example of the journey I'm on right now. But when you start ugly, you've got something to work from. If you try and look for perfection, you'll never ever start. And that's the reality. And there's always reasons to put things off. And it's like even starting a podcast, Alex. I admire you, mate, because how many people do you know who would love to start a podcast or start their own business or, e-commerce or, write a book and they never do it because they overthink it. They're always looking for the perfect moment and it just never happens when you do that.
Perfect moment is now.
Yeah.
I there's a term for it, like inventor's disease, you know, like the inventor always wants his invention to be perfect, his or her invention to be perfect, you know, and then you just tinker on it for so long, whether it's a product or a service, and all of a sudden, like all this time's gone by and you still haven't launched it because you need that thing to do this, you know. I was actually just talking to a friend recently who wanted to launch a podcast, and she has 10 episodes recorded. She's got her album artwork ready. And, but there was that thing in her mind of like, oh, I think I want to, you know, change the album. I was like, look, just start it. Like, I heard a really good line a few years ago, like, anything is better than nothing, you know, provided that it's not shit. Right. So
I love that.
Yeah. But it really stuck with me, you know, like the first 5 episodes of the Sweat It Out podcast were me in a sauna, sweating it out with, you know, a $70 Rode lav mic on each of us, connected to an iPhone on each of us using some Rode app. And one of the phones we were using was cracked. Like it was, but because I knew that, like, I knew we could get it done. I knew it would work. And I knew that if we did that, we can put it out there and we'll get feedback whether people like it or not. Because I knew that the content was good, you know, and that, you know, we could make the quality better afterwards. And we released 5, we sent it around, and I learned a lot doing those 5. I edited them myself. And if you go back and listen to them, it's like, oh gosh, you sound like we're in the dungeon or something. However, people valued the content. People liked what we spoke about. People said, this is cool. Let's, you know, are you going to do some more? So I was like, okay, cool. We've got proof of concept now. People like it. Let's continue. So then I, you know, got the rig set up a bit better, and here we are having a good conversation. It'll sound great. And, you know, but it's just that idea of like, just like, I knew that they weren't going to be shit, right? I knew that. And so let's do it. Let's try it, you know, and what's the worst that's going to happen? They'll listen to it. They'll say it's not really, you know, that exciting. Cool. Then I'll move on, you know. Don't need to complicate it.
No, that's right. And you can perfect it as you go along. And, you know, I mean, perfection is, I don't think it really exists, but you can always tweak dials, make improvements as you go along. But yeah, the worst thing we can do is not to start something. So I must go back and listen to a few of those initial episodes.
Yeah, check them out, man. Like what we talk about's good, but the sound could definitely be improved. Anyway, we digress. So, how are you spending your? What does your morning routine look like, and how are you kind of spending your days now? How are you sort of in like keeping that focus on living well throughout your day?
Yeah. Right at the moment, I'm creating a program with the Wake Up Wellness badge. And I, in terms of my morning routine, I also, you know, I've got a couple of businesses as well that I run. So I run the Tolman Self Care business. We ship products all around Australia and the world. So handcrafted skincare, natural food products and things like that. So we've been doing that for about 8 years. We work with a couple of educators, Dr. Espen Yalnby, Tyler Tolman. My wife Inga is very involved with doTERRA essential oils. We've got a couple of new brands that we're looking to launch in the next 4 to 6 weeks, e-commerce brands in the wellness space. One of them's a cosmetic product, which is the girls, Inga and my 2 daughters are working on, and another one's a food product. We've got a bit on, to be honest with you, Alex, professionally. Personally, I'm just doing what I've always done, mate. I've been, of late, I've been back in the pool, doing my laps, and I've had about a month off the bike. Usually in summer, I just scale it back a little bit over Christmas, and I'll pick that up again in the next few weeks. But, you know, my morning routine in a nutshell is pretty much the same just about every day. I get up, I stretch. I usually spend about 5 to 10 minutes stretching. and I've done a lot of yoga over the years, particularly hot yoga. So I usually just go through a bit of a routine there, 5 or 6 different stretches / poses, just to get me connected. And then I'll hydrate, usually anywhere from 500 ml to a litre of clean water. I always drink cold water in the morning because it just helps to, activate your body, stimulate digestion.
Cold water from the fridge?
Kick from the filtration system. Kickstarts your metabolism. I usually add a juice of a whole lemon or lime to that with a bit of Celtic sea salt. And then I usually hit the gym pretty much straight after that. So as I say, I do my main workout activity is F45. And I love that because, I spent a lot of time going to gyms and I just found that it became very tedious after a while, and, walking around the gym, keeping yourself motivated, trying to find, the right exercises to do, always busy, have to wait for equipment. So a lot of time gets wasted in a traditional gym. When you go to a high intensity interval training or something like that, like F45, you pretty much just hand yourself over and you're inside and out of there within an hour, and you just feel explosive, because you don't have to think, you just go for it. There's the training's always different from day to day. There's always, whether it's 9 stations or 22 stations or whatever. So you're always moving your body in different ways. And, so that's me. Usually then come home, walk. Ingrid and I'll usually walk the dogs for about 3/4 of an hour. Got a walk that we do. Sometimes we'll go to the beach, have a swim. So by this stage, it's usually about 7:30. And then typically I won't eat until at least 9, but sometimes 10 a.m. So I'll typically eat when I get to the office, and it'll either be just some bananas. Sometimes I'll make a smoothie at home and take that with me. I've got a bit of a mantra that I try to stick by at least 4 or 5 mornings a week, and that is to eat liquids first. And it kind of goes back to that whole philosophy that I sort of touched on at the start, which is the whole idea of going really easy on your digestive system during that first few hours of the day. And then when you do break your fast, because at the end of the day, that's what breakfast is. It's about breaking your fast that you've spent the last, 10, 12, 14, 15, 16 hours doing. You want to do it in a way that doesn't shock your digestive system. So you want to try and avoid heavy foods as much as you can. Now, it's not to say that on a Sunday you can't go and enjoy your scrambled eggs or whatever it might be, but it's just that the more you can adopt that philosophy of delaying when it is that you eat and starting with liquids, be it a smoothie, be it a cold pressed juice. If you're going to drink coffee, that's fine too. You won't actually break your fast if it's black, and if it's obviously grind your own beans if you can. Always look for organic coffee. Coffee's one of the most oversprayed, over-commercialised commodities on earth. So if you're going to drink coffee, which, I'm not sure about you, Alex, but I love my coffee, and most people do. But just be a bit conscious about what you're adding to coffee when you do, if you do add. So I like to add, nut milks and almond milk and coconut milk and things like that. But if you want to stay in the fasted state and not disrupt your fast, you can have a black coffee without anything added to it, and you'll still stay in that fasted.
Because there's no calories to an espresso or a black coffee, right?
Yeah, and also the polyphenols in coffee actually really help the fasting process because they help stimulate the release of toxins from the gut, and yes, there's the whole story around that. But there's no metabolic response in terms of insulin because there's no calories in it. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So get up, stretch, hydrate, move intensely, then walk, and then I'm a big note taker. So sort of usually when I'm preparing my smoothie or just before I get in the car to drive to the office, I typically just spend 10 minutes or so just sort of unpacking the top 3 things for today. Because as you can imagine, when you've got a lot of projects on the go, it can get very overwhelming. And I'm also doing a course right now out of America, and that's in addition to all that other stuff I mentioned. So when you're doing so many different things without having some clear daily milestones, you can very easily get lost and find that you get nothing done. So yeah, just spending a few minutes just setting some clear written down intentions, top 3 things for the day. And then usually inside those 3 things, there's usually 2 or 3 key activities that have to happen. And you won't always get the 3 done. Sometimes you only get one of those things done. But I think when you have that clarity going into your day of what it is that you want to achieve today, and then when you get to starting on it, you've got to minimize the distractions. And one of the best things we can all do when we're working on a project is to just get the hell off social media.
Amen.
Turn the notifications off, shut down your email, do your email later in the day, I find as well, is a better thing. So at least wait till after midday. So at least get, like 2-3 hours of when your mind is most alive and creative. Do your creative work in the morning and then answer your emails and all of that sort of later in the day.
Yeah, man. I used to always just have this guilt around not answering emails and things. And then one day, one of my mentors just said to me, like Alex, if he's like, you're on the path to be quite successful, right? Like, and you're doing things as a successful person would. But let me ask you this: if you rang or tried to get in touch with the CEO of Telstra, do you think you'd get him on the phone? I was like, well, no. He's like, exactly. So when you're doing something important, turn your phone off or put it on airplane mode. Like, have that 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe it's an hour if you're well structured. Like, have that time in silence and focus on what you're doing. Don't allow those external distractions coming in. And it was really good advice, because too often it's like, oh yeah, someone will email you about something or ping you on Slack or something about something that you need to do. And then you're like, oh yeah, that's right, that thing. And all of a sudden it's been 2.5 hours. You've only done, a small amount of what you wanted to get done,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the hardest thing to do, because there's just so much coming at us on social these days. It's like, it just can get really overwhelming. So, and we're all guilty of it from time to time, it's, you can get distracted by one thing, right? And then before you know where you are, you've totally lost your intention for the day. You've gone down a whole rabbit hole with whatever it is that disrupted you, and then you can burn an hour at least or more just because you allowed that. So I just find if you just minimize the temptation by minimizing the distraction, and then you go a long way to helping yourself actually kick some milestones for the day.
I love that, mate. This has been excellent. I hope you've been having a good time.
Yeah. What time is it?
It's 20 past.
Wow.
Did you have anything you wanted to ask me?
I'm curious to know how long have we got? You want to go for another 5-10?
Yeah, we can go a little bit longer. Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious to know how you got doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So my parents started Eye Health Saunas in 2008. And so, God, what was I then? I was like 14 or something like that. Anyway, so they got into the business. Like Dad was always a business owner, selling other products. My mum was into natural health and wellness, and they came across infrared saunas and sold saunas for other companies. And then after a period of time, they said, we can probably do this better ourselves. So got designed their first models, went through a few suppliers, found the right supplier, and that was in 2008. And so I just grew up with Eye Health Saunas kind of running in the background, and mum and dad always talking about work at home. But mum was also always on the kind of health and wellness train. And it was like my early 20s, and I wasn't really following any of the advice mum had given me on looking after myself for a few years. And anyway, I just I actually saw Tyler Tolman a couple of times, started to get healthy, did a couple fasts. And I'd always worked with the saunas like on the weekend, pretty much when I was like 15, on Saturdays and Sundays, I'd go and build saunas in people's homes or pull them down from events and things. So it was always kind of part of my life, but I was studying engineering. I was 21. And after a year and a bit of engineering, I said to myself, man, if I'm going to be working with the kind of people that I'm studying with, I'm probably going to hang myself in about 5 years' time. Like there was something that wasn't right about that just wasn't resonating with me. And it was the summertime. I worked full time at Eye Health, and I was sending out testimonials to people, like handwritten, like we'd post them out and they would write on them and send them back. It was archaic. And these testimonials would come back, and I was like reading these stories about how saunas had changed some of these people's lives. Like one lady was told to finalize her affairs because the polymyalgia rheumatica she had was going to kill her, right? And she got a sauna, and, her life turned around, all these amazing things. And I was just like, wow, like we're actually doing something here. Like we're having an impact, and I was starting to get healthy at the time. And, at the time I wasn't consciously like, okay, I'm just going to quit uni and do this because this is where my purpose and passion is, but something was kind of making me want to do that. So I left uni, started working full time. And then 3 years later, my dad got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. As I said, he was always the businessman, not the health man. And so, anyway,
I think most of our parents of that kind of generation, that's the deal.
Yeah. And so that happened, and I started running the business from 2017, certainly with ignorance on my side. But the business wasn't pumping. It had challenges. It had issues. And anyway, so like you said, I took responsibility, and I just said, I got to learn business, more than what Dad has passed on to me, because he passed on some good things, but he passed on some shit things, right? So I went and did quite a few business courses, started getting mentored, started doing the work, and it was through my passion of helping people, like if mum and dad had a company selling roof tiles, like I wouldn't be doing it, but it was because we were actually having impact on people. And so then we started to really explore like what we do, we help people with sauna, but people who are looking for sauna, they're looking to improve their quality of life. They're looking to optimize their health. They're looking to get to a higher level of health. And that's what my jam was at the same time, like I think in life you do the personal work and then the other stuff kind of happens. And again, I was doing more fasting. We started eating vegan. I started moving more. I started having better relationships, started being more open and honest and loving and practicing gratitude and all these things kind of happening at the same time. And so our business just kind of pivoted, and, over time we started running master classes, and we started, the podcast only started last year, but just more of that, like, how can we help educate more? How can we have beautiful conversations like we're having now that may help someone, because I saw in my life, like when I started getting healthy, my life started to improve, and that kind of spreads, like people message me now like, oh, Alex, I just ate a bowl of papaya for lunch because I saw you've been eating, you know, like fruits and things. And it's like, yes, you know, like that's what I love, because when you start to live it, it starts to spread to others, you know, and I saw how my consciousness shifted through doing that work. And I want to be able to spread that, you know, and so that's kind of, I guess, how we got to where we are now.
Great stuff, mate. Well, it's awesome what you're doing, and you know, the product that you offer is incredible. My dad got one too. He's up on the north side of Brisbane, and I've even got family members that come over and hog it for a session here and there. I haven't charged them yet, but you know,
the invoice is in the mail.
Yeah. So, that's cool, mate. So you're on this journey now, and you know, you will obviously learn a lot from your folks. And is your dad still with us?
Yeah, he is. He's it's at a bit of a point now. Actually, he's just about to go into a home, which is again another challenge of life, right?
Yeah, sure.
Going through that experience, but again, you know, I always say to people, like, if you need something to motivate you to like look after yourself, it's like, here's all the science linking poor sleep and excess alcohol and poor nutrition with Alzheimer's and chronic stress with Alzheimer's, right? And then spend a week with someone with Alzheimer's, you'll be pretty motivated to look after yourself, because it is just debilitating. It's horrible, you know, to experience. And once you're around it, like every day, I'm like, okay, you know, it's just my focus is always on looking after this, you know, this vehicle that we've been gifted.
Well, the mind is just everything, isn't it? You know, and once that starts to go, it's a tough road. But I think that just kind of highlights what we spoke about a little earlier. You know, we just need to spend that energy and that focus on making sure that we're always keeping our mind active, our physical health in a good place. And because I don't think any of us want to get to later stages in life and have those sort of later years compromised too much. Obviously, certain biological things happen, but the more we can keep our mind active and healthy, the better, I think.
Yeah, I was really gifted growing up with, you know, we always had sick people, you know, either coming into our house in the early days to try sauna or in and around the showroom. And I was lucky to see that, because it was like, man, if I don't look after myself, like I'm going to have that problem or that, you know, like I was just seeing it every day, you know, and they were always making the same, you know, I guess errors in how they spent their time and what food they put in. And so I just kind of got this education on like what not to do in a way, you know, and so that's just always been in my mind, with a focus on looking after myself, so I can end up, like you said, being able to play cricket with your grandchildren or go for a bike ride. And I think there's a part in all of us that wants that sort of experience, you know?
Sure.
Yeah. So Zane, it's been a pleasure having you on, mate.
Mate, I've had a ball. I really enjoyed it. When can we do the next one?
Yeah, we should actually book that in. I would like that.
Yeah.
If people want to get in touch with you or find out more about what you do, where can they find you?
Yeah, just go to my Facebook page. I'm starting to get a lot more active there. So just at Zane Truscott. I'm posting weekly videos there, and once I get this program, this Wake Up Wellness program up and running in the next several weeks, I'll be sharing all about it with my community. But either there, also on my website, which perhaps we can put in the show notes on the Fortune Education website, it's just a link to a short 6-video mini course called Strong Health Foundations, and it just covers some of the basics that we need to be back in tune with, just to get back on track with our health. So that's available on my Fortune Education website. People can download it, and they get a video each day for 6 days. It's only about 6-7 minutes in length each one, but I've had some great feedback on that as well.
Yeah, awesome. Beautiful, mate. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and Until next time, ciao, everyone.
Thanks, Alex.